mounting a tire with a tube and a flap into a military split room, World War II. First, put a little air in the tube, give it some body while you fit it inside. Set the air pressure regulator on your compressor to 35 psi, that way you won't go over the maximum pressure when you're seating the bead. Check to make sure which way your stem's going. Check which way is top of the tire. This one doesn't matter. Some of them have a colored dot, and I always put the colored dot on the back. This one, the stem has to point up like that as it comes out of here. Now install the flap. The flap protects the tube against the rim. It's got a hole for the stem. What you do is you curl it so it'll go inside. So what you want is that you have it nice and set inside evenly. Take very soapy water, lube the rim, lube the tire, and the flap. This helps you, and it helps to seat the bead at a lower pressure so it's less dangerous. Okay, so what we need to do is feed the stem into the stem hole. It's not going to want to go on these pre-bent ones easily. Got to make sure that the stem isn't crooked coming out. You want to have it nice and square coming through the hole. Okay, now the stem is bent too much, so what I have to do is I have to bend the stem just a little bit so I can get it through the hole properly. The way I do that is I slip a box end wrench over the stem and I bend it just a little bit. Now we pull the stem up so it's nice and even, coming in nice and straight. Set this down. Push the bead on the rest of the way. Okay, double check the stem, make sure it's square coming out of the hole. Go get a lock ring. This is a lock ring. I usually try and put the notches on the lock ring opposite of the stem to help balance the tire. Start one side. You got a notch right here so it weighs less on this end. Hold that. There you go. Now we take the valve stem out, the valve core, stem valve. Take the stem valve out, also called the core, so that if there's an emergency we can pop the air off and it'll stop putting air in. You're supposed to use a cage, a safety cage, which will entrap the tire and the ring in case the ring pops off when you don't want it to. I don't have one. I use 2 DOT rated load chains for trucking. I put them around twice. We'll leave a little slack so that as the tire inflates, it doesn't bind up on the chain, and then you got to air out the tire again, deflate the tire so that you can get the chain back off. A little bit of slack. Trying not to mess up the paint while we drag the chain through. And now I stand behind a heavy object such as this trailer next to me, watching the beads to seat. I'm going to double check to make sure that the ring is seated using a soft base hammer. You got rubber or plastic. I use the plastic side. Looks good. Inflate it to about 20 psi and check to see if the bead on the bottom is seated before you bring it up to full pressure of 35. And make sure you don't stick your finger between the bead and the tire and the rim bead, so that if it does pop, you don't pinch your finger off. We use a manual remote shut-off to the air hose back at the compressor, so that you can shut off the air without having to go next to the tire if there's a problem. You can tell when it's almost full because the rush of air through the hose diminishes a lot. So right now we're about 25 psi. Not too tight when you put the valve back in to the stem, and then finish inflating it. I usually wait till it's fully deflated before I take the chains off. And that is a fully seated bead. There's just a little bit of, rim lock. There's just a little bit of gap, air gap all the way around. You can see right there that it's fully locked. And that's it.